In 1721, while Bach was first performing the Brandenburg Concerto, John Harris built the organ that 100 years later, more or less, was transported here to St Micheals in Blackheath.
Hello, I'm David Hawkett, and I'm organist here. It's wet versus dry recordings of organ pipes, isn't it? They talk about when they're sampling organ pipes for electronic organs.
Yes.
They get the wet sample in the church, where you get all the ambience. They get the dry sample where you get the microphone really near the pipe, so you just get the sound of the pipe on its own. A wet recording is when you've got all the
ambient noise.
Yes, noise, and the dry recording. Because the sound, if you just hear an organ pipe on its own, it's a very dull sound. It's the, as you've heard people say, it's the building which makes it sound so good.
How do you play? Are you a shoed or a socks player?
Yes,
okay.
I know real organs. I'm not a real organist. I happen to be the only person at St Micheals who can play the organ, or approximately play the organ, so I get to do it. But I'm not a qualified organist. I never did my ARCO or anything like that.
I interviewed an organist, and he said, well, he wears shoes, but mainly because if you're sitting at unknown organs all the time, you never know when you're going to get splinters.
Yes.
These look in pretty good order, actually.
You're right, yes.
And in fact, the whole thing looks like it's in a good state. Yeah.
Fairly good state. As you know, all church organs tend to go through, particularly if it's in a church where organ is not central to the worship. They go into periods of decline, and
there's a catch-up.
And St Micheals, reading about the organ gift day in sort of the early 20th century to try and get funds to repair it, or indeed when they wanted to get an electric blower for it, because the blower man had retired, who they paid £1.12 and sixpence a year, I think, when the organist got £15 a year. So then the organist said, well, this blower man is retiring, we need to get an electric blower. But then they found another man to work the bellows, so instead they spent money on new bellows and a new person to pump it. But the electric blower, the same one that's there now, was installed nearly 100 years ago. Okay. Well, historically it came here fairly soon after the church was built in 1830-something. It was, like all organs, they're rarely built completely from scratch if other old organs were available. So we know that bits of it came from a church in central London. Some of the pipework is pretty much in its original state, early 18th century. Other bits, because organs, they always evolve. And on this one, the most recent change in about the middle of the last century was to add a couple of mixture stops. No, a mixture rank, stop rather, I should say, is several ranks. So if as it were, that's the basic sound of that one. Yep. Then an octave plus a bit above you get, which is in fact three notes which are not octaves or anything. They're fifths and things like that, which sounds rather odd. But when you add it to the sound, if you've got it without the mixture, you get. Then you add the mixture. It really lifts the whole thing because it's adding all these complicated overtones to the basic sound. So that, in a way, is one of my favourite stops, but it's never used on its own. It's only ever used combined with the other stops for the last verse for him to make it really loud. You add that bit in.
And do you play lots of organs, and this is just one, or is this the one that you play nearly all the time?
Oh, this is the only one, really.
This is the only one. Yeah.
I've been coming to this church for 44 years or so.
And do you have a bunch of things that you play all the time, or are you always pushing yourself with new work?
I don't much push myself like I used to.
Yes.
As one gets older, one's capacity for learning declines,
yes,
and one's capacity for forgetting increases. So that the best I can hope for is to keep up with what I've already learned. But I try, of course, sometimes to do something different. But no, unfortunately, one of the things of age, you just cling on to what you've got.
So I'm looking at this. This layout I've been told about, but not seen, where the stops are. Oh, the ones I've seen so far, the stops are on the side.
Yes.
And then we've got these buttons down here.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. The buttons work the stops. So, and on most organs, the main manual, there'll be a row of pistons from the quietest to the loudest. So it's it's the lazy way of doing the crescendos and making it loud and quiet. The dynamics, that's the word. So you start off quiet, then as you work your way up the pistons, so it pulls out more stops. And the loudest one of all, the trumpet, you have to do that by hand.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell me about the instrument?
I suppose by now I know what all the stops do. I do know, sadly, that they don't all work, and it's
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, we have the book of, I list all the, like all organ consoles do, I list all the things that aren't working. The tuner comes twice a year, and he does what he can to fix it, and sometimes he says, oh, couldn't get fixed that one, we'll have to wait till next time or something. So at the moment, there's only one really loud 16-foot deep pedal node.
Those are those are electrical things that link to a mechanical stop.
That's right,
Yeah.
yes.
But is that also the same as the keys on the keyboard?
Yes, so these are all just switches, yes.
Really? Okay.
It was about 30 years ago, it was changed from pneumatic to electric action, because pneumatic action, all by lots and lots of tiny tubes you've probably seen, there's still some around, I think.
Yeah.
They use a lot of leather. Leather doesn't last forever, and so electric, we were told, will be more reliable, and I suppose it's been slightly more reliable, but not perfectly so. So you move it half a pipe's pitch apart, and you've got no sound. You move it back so the holes line up, and that stop works. And the motors that they use are Volkswagen windscreen wiper motors, 12-volt motors.
But does that mean if you link together the keyboards, it's not harder to press the keys?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're just switches. So purists prefer tracker action, where you can feel what's happening, but no, there are lots of dead switches. It's
Yeah.
like a very cheap keyboard that doesn't even have velocity sensitive. So it's
on or off.
Exactly, yeah.
There's lots of these round buttons beside the pedals.
They do exactly the same as this. They simply that row of 6 pistons there is duplicated by
Oh, so it's just redundancy.
5 pistons. It's the same as there. So so these use your thumbs, but if you haven't got a spare thumb, you might have a spare right foot, in which case you would use that.
Awesome.
And these are for the couplers, so that joins the pedal to the grate there. So you either do it with your finger, or you do it with your foot, or you do it with a thumb. So you've got 3 different ways of doing the same thing. And this is the swell box, which makes it go louder.
There you've got the complete range. I've seen a few where you've got a ratchet on there and it's kind
That's
of on
right,
and off.
yeah.
Yes,
This is a balanced swell pedal, yes. You can just leave it anywhere and it stays.
Okay. Perhaps we could play something.
Yeah. Of course, this is all editable, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, don't worry.
You've got a way of cutting out the wrong notes and putting the right ones in. Good. This is the first piece I ever learned. It's the first piece anyone learning organ seems to learn. Bach's #1 book of short preludes and fugues, and it's #1 in the book. So learning the organ started here.
This is the beginning. This is where everybody starts.
That's right.
This looks too complicated to be something that everyone starts on. I can see a lot of notes there.
Well,
all quite close together.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Do you want to look inside?
Oh, yes, please.
These are some of the largest pipes, the wooden ones. That's probably a 16-foot. You need a person standing by it to give the scale. But most of the pipes are upstairs.
Lovely. That's fantastic. Do you have a relationship with it? You know
very
it's-
much so, yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes, I am very fond. You're quite right. It's an emotional thing to play the organ, particularly when you're playing loud, and particularly when there's a whole church full of people singing their hearts out, and you're playing your heart out and pulling out all the stops. It's a heart rate goes really high doing that.
Yeah.